depression in honor of Depression Awareness Month. This week we are focused on releasing depression from the mind, and the way we do that is by drawing mindfulness or awareness to our internal dialogue or our self-talk. Self-talk is important for, well, lots of reasons, but language is how we define our experiences, and how we define our experiences internally when we talk to ourselves really has a lot of impact on every area of our life. Research in this is unanimous, which should really make us take pause, right? Because researchers don't tend to agree with each other. We like to prove our side or the other side, and so when we all agree on something, I say it's pretty important, right? So research is unanimous that negative self-talk is harmful, and it will even describe how it's harmful to the mind, body, and the spirit. And you know, I love to hit on all those different components. In the body, it leads to poor circulation, lower immune response, increased pain, and decreased energy. In the mind, we'll get into it a little bit later because that's what this week's focus is on. And in the spirit, you can imagine that if you view the world as mostly negative or out to get you or in a negative light, your ability to connect with other people, connect with yourself, or connect with source is all going to be impacted. So negative self-talk or internal dialogues that are largely negative have profound impact for all spheres of our well-being. Lots of research has been done on the types of negative self-talk that people tend towards. There's 4 big ones. One is personalizing. Personalizing is like something bad happens and I'm like, oh, it's all my fault. Everything's my fault. I'm to blame for, world hunger, childhood obesity, all of it. It's all my fault. That's personalizing. Polarizing is the idea that something is all good or all bad. So I go through something difficult. I'll say the flood. Anybody in Southeast Texas remembers how horrible Hurricane Harvey was, right? So if I say that was all bad, that whole experience was bad and nothing good happened at all, that would be polarizing. Magnifying is the third kind, and that means I only focus on the negative and I minimize any positive. So I acknowledge there's a positive, but it really doesn't matter. The negative is what I stick to. And the last one is catastrophizing. This bad thing happened, so everything's gonna be bad forever and ever until I die. That's catastrophizing. Let's talk about positive self-talk in the mind. Helps reduce stress, it boosts confidence, and it improves your relationships. Can you guess how it would improve a relationship? If I'm really adept at seeing the good in myself and seeing the good in the world, then I'm also going to be pretty trained in seeing the good in other people. And when I focus on that, other people notice, and it feels good to be around me. And so that's how it improves relationships. Positive self-talk also improves outcomes for symptoms of depression, PTSD, anxiety even. So internal narratives or self-talk really has a lot of impact on all areas of our well-being. Some people, when I start to talk about self-talk in therapy, are like, well, I don't want to gaslight myself. Isn't that gaslighting myself? And it's really not doing that. I'm not telling you to minimize the bad or to ignore the fact that a situation is hard. I don't want you to do that. That's not beneficial either. But I want, what I'm encouraging instead is a more balanced perspective. Like, yes, this situation is difficult. I'll use Hurricane Harvey again. Yes, Hurricane Harvey was hard, but so many loving, kind, compassionate souls, so many helpers showed up and helped me feel loved and cared about and not alone, that was a huge benefit. And if I don't look at that and I only look at this, that's not good for me at all. But it's not gaslighting for me to say, oh, I really developed these wonderful relationships and friendships. I have some really deep friendships that were born out of that tragedy that happened, that I might never have been able to meet those people or had those connections. That's a real benefit. And it's not gaslighting myself to acknowledge that as well. You'll never hear me be like, woohoo, that was great, I loved losing everything I ever worked for. You'll not hear me say that. That would be gaslighting, right? Like, that wasn't hard at all. That's gaslighting. So positive self-talk is not about gaslighting yourself. It's really just about understanding and appreciating that there's a negative and positive in absolutely everything, and to purposefully use mindfulness to shift my perspective to ruminating or focusing more on the benefits or the positives of that situation. So it also really involves forgiving ourselves, and I feel like a lot of us struggle with that, right? It's really normalized in our culture to bash ourselves and to take responsibility and to be mean to ourselves and to do those things. And if we do that and don't forgive ourselves for shortcomings, then it's really easy to get caught in a trap of self-loathing or negative self-talk. But I'm human. I show up every day and I make a million mistakes. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning here and I've already made at least 100 mistakes. I'm human. I deserve grace and forgiveness, and I deserve compassion around where I'm learning how to grow and heal. Everybody deserves that. Not everybody else and not me, everybody, including me, including you. So there's a lot of forgiveness that is involved in being able to talk sweetly to yourself. And we will probably touch on that at some point. Forgiveness needs its own whole month, I think, because forgiveness is tough for others and for ourselves. But a lot of us have really nurtured and nourished this inner self-critic who tells us where we fall short and how we're gonna fail and how bad we are being human. And really, I really envision our inner hype man. I call it an inner hype man. I really envision our inner hype man as kind of locked up in the corner of our mind somewhere, right? Tied and gagged, and just we're not listening to that part of ourselves. And I feel like nourishing a good inner hype man is important for us to feel good about ourselves, have confidence, and be able to go out and be the best version of ourselves. I use this example of this concert I went to with my daughter really recently. She loves to introduce me to new music, and I've really come to enjoy that time with her. Most of the time she'll send me tracks of the artists we're gonna go see. I knew the one, it was Tate McRae this time. I knew her music, I love her, so I already knew that. We didn't at all focus on who was gonna open for her at that show. We were both so excited about knowing the set list and getting prepared for Tate McRae that we really didn't pay attention to the opening act until we got there. And when I got there, I was exhausted. I've had a really hard couple of weeks at work, heavy cases. There were some things happening in my personal life that had me ramped up. I had to drive into Houston, which I don't enjoy doing. I'm not a good driver. That's not bashing or belittling myself. That's an acknowledgement that I have some room to grow in that area. So I was not at all excited to drive into Houston during rush hour on a Friday evening. So right before we go into this concert, I'm literally, for a highlight or like a context, I had driven backwards, I had to reverse on a one-way in Houston with a whole line of people waiting to get into this concert watching me. It was really not my favorite point in time. I was kind of embarrassed. It was funny, but I was kind of embarrassed. So I go into this concert and I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I haven't eaten dinner, and I grab some popcorn and I sit down. I have no intention at all of enjoying this opening act. I don't know them. I'm just like, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna put my feet up, I'm gonna rest until Tate McRae comes up because I'm gonna really jam up for her. So the opening act comes on and it's Charlie on a Friday. And the hype man comes out. His name's Jordan. I will always remember Jordan's name because Jordan was the epitome of a hype man and exactly what I talk about when I'm trying to explain it to other people. Jordan comes out and he's like pumping up the crowd and talking about Charlie on a Friday and how great this person is. And he's so energized and enthusiastic and so positive. And all of a sudden he says, 3, 2, 1, or 1, 2, 3, I don't remember which way, jump. And all of a sudden my 48-year-old body, tired, exhausted, embarrassed, hungry, is up jumping because Jordan told me to jump. And I'm like, what the heck just happened there? Jordan is the epitome of a hype man, right? And that's what I want us to nurture in our own mind. You're great, you got this, life is wonderful. It energizes you and you find yourself doing things that you didn't expect, didn't know you're capable of, and you really just lean into life. Jordan's fantastic. You really got to look at Charlie on a Friday and listen to Jordan. I really want to try to cajole him into coming in and telling us how to be good hype men. But we can nourish an inner voice in ourselves that's like Jordan, right? And I'm going to give you some examples. I have a hype man that followed me around on a particularly difficult day. And so here, watch track 1 of M's hype man pumping her up. Everybody's going to make fun of me for coloring in public.
What do you mean everyone's gonna make fun of you for coloring in public? Why would they have the coloring sheets out on display in an adult store for adults if they didn't want you to color?
That's
they even
right.
got markers.
Hey, do you want to come color with me?
Okay, so as you unleash your inner hype man, she'll go through stages, right, of hyping you up. The first video, the hype man really uses counterbalancing. Counterbalancing is when you have a situation and I was viewing it as really negative, like, oh no, like I really want to do this, but people are going to make fun of me for doing this. Counterbalancing is saying, yeah, but this is also true, right? And the hype man was like, yeah, but they left those markers and coloring sheets out in public. It's a store for adults. They intended you to do it, right? So it's presenting evidence that your thinking is wrong. I don't love this as a hype man strategy, right? And the reason is because arguing with yourself is not self-love. It's like you're criticizing yourself for criticizing yourself, right? Did you see that? Like I said, oh, people are gonna make fun of me. I'm not really supposed to, like this coloring sheet isn't for me. And my hype man was like, oh no, it is, and this is why you're wrong. So I don't love for us to get into arguments with ourselves because bullying ourselves into feeling better doesn't actually work on the long term. It does initially, right? That's a stage that our hype man is gonna go through because again, I picture our hype man's been in the corner, gagged and stuffed, and as she emerges, she's gonna go through these stages. So the first one is kind of counterbalancing, like, oh yeah, that's true, but this is true. So arguing with yourself is not self-love. It's okay that you do it this way at first because hyping yourself up is an important thing to do, and you don't have to get it perfect the first time, right? So let's listen to our hype man the second time.
I can't go in here all by myself. I don't know anything about technology. They're gonna think I'm so stupid. They're just gonna laugh at
What are
me.
you talking about? It's just a normal store. They're gonna think you're so smart and nice and interesting. And you know what? Everyone has technology problems.
All right, I can do it.
So in the second video, you see the hype man's improving a little bit. Like, this is why you're good. And she uses, instead of arguing or criticizing or saying I'm wrong, instead she uses reasoning. Like, yeah, you might not be good at technology, but lots of people aren't good at technology. So it's still okay. You're still okay. So the second stage of developing your hype man will sound more like that. Like, you're not in this alone. Other people feel this way too. It's okay. It's not counterbalancing because it's not saying you're wrong. It's saying you're right, but everybody feels this way and you can do it. And you can kind of see at the end she's starting to morph into, but you're great and everybody's gonna love you. This is the hype man coming out. That's the core of a hype man. You're great. You can figure this out. You've got this. That's the hype man we're looking for. So let's listen to this third one.
I am never gonna get these tap dance combinations down. They're just so hard and everybody else can do them and I just look so stupid.
Actually, practice makes perfect. And you've been going to every rehearsal since the start of the season. So if you want to be good by the time your recital rolls around, you're on the right track, I see.
Okay, in this last video, you can really see the hype man coming into her own, right? There's no counterbalancing, there's no arguing, there's no reasoning. It's all, here's all that you've been doing right. Here's why you're gonna be great at this. Here's all the things that that make you wonderful, right? You've been going to practice, you've been trying real hard. That's your true hype man coming up, right? It's not about gaslighting yourself or trying to trick yourself into thinking you're better than you are. And it's not about having a huge ego. It's about, hey, you're human and you're trying really hard and you're showing up and I see you doing working really hard and trying really hard. That's your hype man. And so what we're gonna focus on the Facebook page for the rest of the week is ways to nourish your inner hype man. And I'll talk more about that in our third segment. How to unlock your inner hype man. And again, I really kind of picture mine kind of locked in the corner for a long time. I'm gonna help you learn how to unlock that part of your brain or part of your mind and really lean into being your own biggest fan. You know, when you wake up in the morning and you start out by saying positive, encouraging things to yourself and reminding yourself of how hard you try and how much effort you're putting into growing and healing and shifting, when you talk to yourself like that, you are going to be able to go out into the world and be the best version of yourself. You are still gonna fall short. You are still gonna be human. You are always gonna show up human and flawed, but you'll learn how to forgive yourself and to give yourself grace for that and be able to keep showing up because you know more than anybody else how hard you try, and so you get to be your own biggest fan. So make sure you check out the Facebook page. I'm gonna put some important information over there, some worksheets for you to start to unlock your inner hype man, and I wanna hear your comments and questions. I know that was a lot to cover in a really short time, so make sure you put your questions in there so I can get them answered for you, and thanks for tuning in.